Hey everybody, so this is one of those weird weeks where it feels like everything is kind of taking a week off, but we did have a new chapter of Vigilantes to go over, so if you haven't read chapter 106, turn back now, because we're going to be discussing three parts of the chapter that more or less set the stage for the end of the fight between Koichi and number 6. So if you're new to the channel, do me a solid and hit that subscribe button, and if you want to be a part of each week's premiere, hit that notification bell. That way you're always notified when a video drops and it's time to pile inside the bar. I know recently people haven't been getting notifications, and honestly I don't know why, but what YouTube tells me to do is to tell my subscribers that they have to change their notification preferences from personalized to all when the drop-down menu appears after hitting the bell. Honestly, if it's too much, thanks for coming through anyway, I appreciate it. But let's talk some Vigilantes, because our boy Koichi has gotten himself into one hell of a fight, and by the end of this chapter, it looks like the game of keep away is coming to an end, so enough of the spoilers during the intro. Let's head inside and grab ourselves a drink. Alright folks, welcome to the bar. So before I get into it and start breaking this down, I really have to say something real quick. Chapter 106 had a mediocre amount of development, if I were to be quite honest, because it feels like this fight between Koichi and number 6 is kinda dragging on. Every chapter has Koichi's quirk going through some sort of unexpected evolution, and that's the part where chapter 106 honestly excels. The problem that I've been having recently with this particular fight is that it feels like it's just going on forever. Granted, the fight has been going on for 3 chapters, but in actual Vigilantes like terms, that's almost 2 months of content. And essentially, when we get this type of feeling of, okay, what's gonna happen next for the story, around the corner is usually the climax of the arc. So for today's breakdown of chapter 106, we're gonna focus on 3 parts of the chapter that I felt were crucial to the development of the end of the story. The first being Soga's role in the future, second, why number 6 is slowed down in comparison to Koichi, and thirdly, we're gonna talk about Koichi's quirk awakening. And along with that, I'll be taking one big fat L for interpreting this arc as possibly the end of the series. So let's head over to the wall and break down chapter 106, and please just hold on to your tomatoes for now. Alright, so first things first, let's address what I just said, the big L in the room. In my last Vigilantes breakdown, I interpreted that it could possibly be that if they didn't take a break, the series could wrap up on the very day that it started, August 20th. Well, unfortunately, as of last week's chapter, it looks like that's not gonna happen. While the next chapter will more or less be the one that's kind of the anniversary chapter, it's not gonna be coming out on the 20th. The chapter's gonna be coming out on the 13th. So we could say that the 5-year celebratory anniversary could be happening on that 13th or the 27th of August. We'll have to see whether or not they have anything planned, being a color page or whether or not they're just going to play it off like they did last year and not even acknowledge the anniversary. Either way, if you want to see something funny, look at my videos around this time last year and you can see that I was assuming that the Endeavor arc could possibly be the final arc of the series. Being that Koichi had just started to fly, it looked like the fight against number 6 was nigh. Then here we are a year later, fighting against number 6 in a completely different circumstance, with the possibility of the end of the series being thrown around by pretty much only me. Full transparency here, I have not heard whatsoever that this could be the final arc of Vigilantes, besides what Koichi's monologues might provide to us. Because in prior chapters, when Koichi spoke about this particular summer being the one that he'll never forget, it gave me a sense of finality. So if this series does continue on, it's going to be interesting to see how it merges into My Hero Academia. Because if the story even makes the decision to run parallel alongside it, there's gonna come a time when it catches up to the main timeline. Cause look, as much as I don't want the series to end, after the number 6 stuff, there really isn't much more to the story. The main bad guy is essentially wrapped up unless Furuhashi writes in a spin that All For One is the true antagonist of Koichi. And if I had to make up an arc to extend the series, it could possibly be the how do we get Knuckle Duster's quirk back arc, though I feel like that would be really stretching it, and I'm fine with the series ending after this fight. Look, my point is, it doesn't look like the series is going to be ending on the exact day of its premiere, which, you know, leaves us all interpreting the end of the series once again. And despite thinking that chapter 106 was a little bit dry, it had a few instances that made me go, oh, I see what they're doing here. Like the stuff with Soga. The reason why they showed him is because he's gonna play a part in the defeat of number 6. The reason why I say this is because we really haven't gotten a flashback arc involving Soga and Knuckle Duster, but the fact of the matter is, he wears Knuckle Duster's gear, meaning that in addition to looking after his daughter, there had to have been something else that drew threw Soga and Knuckle Duster together. Cause while Koichi is the true successor to O'Clock, we have Soga, who is honestly the true successor to Knuckle Duster. Soga hasn't aspired to be a hero whatsoever, but on the other hand, we see Koichi, and Koichi legitimately wants to be a hero, meaning that he would align more with O'Clock than he would with Knuckle Duster, while Soga obviously aligns more with the latter. So while this fight is revolving around Koichi and number 6, let's not forget that number 6 also tainted a lot of people as well, because in the first couple of chapters, there was that tainted trigger being put out by the villain factory that Soga one time used. That's the point in time in the series where Soga genuinely realizes that he's lost control of himself and lost control of what his true path in life is, and if it's not for Knuckle Duster pulling him out of that, he could have gone down the path of being a villain, but all of that is facilitated by number 6. So Soga absolutely has skin in the game when it comes to wanting to apprehend number 6. And I do encourage every single one of you to go back and reread Vigilantes at some points, because it really does a fantastic job at world building. Soga and the boys, in addition to the guys over at the Hopper Cafe, they discuss quirk discrimination very openly. They go out of their way to point out that some people who are just genuinely good people get lumped in with bad people because their quirks might be, you know, kind of referred to as a villainous type of quirk. Look at Shinzo. People thought that Shinzo's brainwashing was a perfect villainous quirk, but he's out here like, yeah, that's really not me. I just kind of want to be a hero. So if Koichi does end up needing help from someone, I'm hoping that it's Soga that comes to his aid. Even if Soga doesn't participate in the fight, he's a thinker. He's a very knowledgeable guy when it comes to fighting people. So with number 6 becoming more and more erratic, it's going to be interesting to see whether or not Soga's appearance will become a detriment to Koichi's cause. When they're on the ropes, every villain likes to take a hostage. Because right now, that fight that's breaking out between Koichi and number 6 is a full-blown speedster fight. They are racing throughout the city with number 6 throwing explosive punch after explosive punch, and he cannot keep up to Koichi. That is, until he does some weird creepy crawler move, to which we get an ironic scene where Koichi actually calls someone else's crawling creepy. But this whole chapter is essentially Koichi just taking advantage of the fact that number 6 wants him dead so bad. Even number 6 acknowledges that what Koichi's trying to do is lead him out of the city, so All Might will be attracted to this situation. So number 6 has to do everything that he possibly can to kill Koichi before that happens. But that's the rub. He can't get a handle on our boy because his quirk is constantly evolving, and because number 6 is constantly abusing Overclock. Remember, Overclock is a speed-based quirk, but to the uninitiated, it may come off as something that makes them into a speedster. What Overclock actually does is amplify processes, meaning every time number 6 regenerates one of his limbs, it's enhanced by Overclock, so his stamina is slowly wearing down. If this fight happened hours earlier, the outcome would have been outstandingly different. And as for Koichi dodging so instinctively, I would say that he's achieved a level similar to Goku's Ultra Instinct. Not literally Ultra Instinct, people, but in a sense that Koichi's instincts give him a severe advantage over number 6. Koichi's figured out number 6's pattern of erratic movements through sound alone, and in turn, he's actually able to move faster than number 6 because he can process where he needs to go next, and to a degree move so quickly that he leaves an after image of himself. But that's not even half of it, because in addition to Koichi arguably becoming one of the top 3 fastest people in My Hero Academia, his quirk further awakens in this chapter. In the beginning of the story, it was just slide and glide. He needed 3 points of contact on the ground and he was able to zip around. Then it became clinging to walls, then double jumping, then firing projectiles, and after projectiles, he learned that he can slide and glide on 2 feet, which turned into a thruster jump of epic proportions, and eventually became full-blown flying. Now, Koichi can generate any of those force field barriers all over him, not just from his hands. You see, when he first displaced one of number 6's punches, he did it with his hands, but this time, he had Koichi's back, and it still happened, which means that Koichi's quirk can be activated by the speed of thought. Because when he left his feet, number 6 thought that he had him dead to rights. The difference is, the downfall to Overclock is being in midair. You can't touch Koichi if he's in midair. That's actually where his quirk excels. Number 6 was so obsessed with finding his own identity by stealing Koichi's, he doesn't even realize that slide and glide is Overclock on roids. It's simply what he will never be. But now it's pretty safe to say that Koichi's quirk is capable of so much more. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if we see multiple of those force field barriers appear and overwhelm number 6 with tons of shooty-go blams. Because with this scene right here, the long game is over for number 6. Koichi no longer needs his hands to use his quirk. It's only a matter of time before he can start using them to project him in different directions, or like I said before, summon multiple of those force field barriers to fire an insane amount of blasts. So look, if I had to rate this chapter, I would definitely give it a solid 7 out of 10, with Koichi being the main reason why once again this story excels. Number 6 is a very good villain, but at the same time, I don't really like how whiny he is. I don't know if you folks will agree with me on that one, but there's something about number 6 that has made me kind of go meh in the past couple of chapters. And look, as for Koichi's quirk, I think it's safe to say that Sliding Glide is dead, so I think it's time to start thinking of new names for Koichi's quirk. And you know what that means. If you have an idea of what you think Koichi's quirk should be named, leave it in the comments down below. Instances of people's quirks being changed over time because of further understanding of how someone's quirk works, it happens all the time in this universe. So I would actually like it if they change what Koichi's quirk actually is. Personally, I'm kind of hoping for gravity manipulation, but if you got one that's better, drop it in the comments down below. And if you enjoyed today's video, be sure to hit that like button. And until next time, I'll catch y'all later. Cheers!